I mean, this is a bold adaptation of a classic novel. It's nothing like what we've seen on the page.
Welcome to Ms. Mojo, and today we're discussing the differences between Emily Bronte's classic Gothic novel Wuthering Heights and Emerald Fennell's much-talked-about 2026 adaptation. And yes, there are a lot of differences. We'll be mentioning major plot points, so if you're planning to watch the movie or read the book spoiler-free, then go do that first and then come back.
It just felt right to say it's Wuthering Heights, and it isn't. You know, it's...
Cathy and Heathcliff don't look like that. When Emerald Fennell announced that her new adaptation of Wuthering Heights would star Australian actors Margot Robbie and Jacob Elordi, the internet lost its collective mind. And not in a good way. Aside from some concern about the accents and Robbie's blonde hair, the main criticism centered around Margot Robbie's age and Jacob Elordi's ethnicity.
Yeah, who are they? Sorry, don't let them in. They're not on the list. They're not on the list. Yeah, that's fine. We know.
That's how it goes, though. It's Hollywood.
Cathy's age. In the novel, when Cathy's father, Mr. Earnshaw, brings Heathcliff home to Wuthering Heights, she is just 6 years old. By the time Heathcliff runs away, Cathy is 15 and she dies 4 years later.
Cathy, my love. Wake up. Can you hear me? Wake up, look at me.
In the 2026 film, Cathy is played by a 34-year-old Margot Robbie, while Jacob Elordi was 27 at the time of filming. However, it's not unusual for more mature, established actors to be cast in teenage roles.
How can you stand here beside me and pretend not to remember? Not to know that my heart is breaking for you.
Laurence Olivier was 32 when he played Heathcliff in the 1939 Hollywood movie, and Richard Burton played the role in a TV adaptation at 33. In fact, the only notable version of the story to star actual teenagers is Andrea Arnold's film from 2011. It's also unfair, but unsurprising, that Robbie seems to be attracting most of the age-based criticism, when Elordi is also much older than his character. In defense of her choice to cast the Aussie actress, director Emerald Fennell told The Guardian that the role, quote, needed somebody like Margot, who's a star, not just an incredible actress.
It's a dreadful day when Margot Robbie, the greatest actress in the world, the most beautiful woman in the world, forces herself upon you in the manner that she did.
Heathcliff's ethnicity. The casting of Jacob Elordi was an even more contentious decision. Heathcliff is described in the book as dark-haired, dark-eyed, and dark-skinned. But on film, the character has most often been played by a white man. The 2011 adaptation was the first English-language film to cast a non-white Heathcliff, James Housen.
You must have some stories to tell.
Stories?
Well, you've been gone a while. You changed. We're all wondering.
Some people argue that Heathcliff, who was found in the Liverpool docks, may have been of mixed-race African heritage, or even a dark-featured Irish foundling. From the book's description, he's ethnically ambiguous but most likely Romani, an ethnic group who are thought to originate from northern India. The character Lockwood calls Heathcliff dark-skinned, while Linton's father, also not in the film, describes him as, quote, a little Lascar, or an American or Spanish castaway. A Lascar was a term for a sailor of Indian or Asian descent. Meanwhile, Nelly tells young Heathcliff at one point, quote, who knows, but your father was Emperor of China and your mother an Indian queen. Whatever he is, he's almost certainly not white.
Let me see. Look at you. You're a prince.
Casting director Carmel Cochran has taken a colorblind casting approach to Wuthering Heights, not just with Elordi, but also with other characters including Edgar Linton, who is played by Shazad Latif, and Nelly Dean, who is portrayed by Hong Chow.
I normally read everything because I've done projects that have been based or that have been adaptations of plays, of graphic novels, of novels, and I usually do always read the book beforehand, but I just found that it always ends up being so different.
Cochran argues that the source material, quote, is just a book that's not based on real life. It's all art. Meanwhile, director Emerald Fennell has said that Jacob Elordi, quote, looked exactly like the illustration of Heathcliff on the first book that she read.
I think the thing is everyone who loves this book has such a personal connection to it. And so you can only ever kind of make the movie that you sort of imagined yourself when you read it.
Lockwood, The Next Generation, and Cathy's Ghost. A major decision for anyone adapting Wuthering Heights is whether to include the narrator, Lockwood, and the next generation of Lintons, Heathcliffs, and Earnshaws.
Thank you for your hospitality. Could you extend it to a cup of tea?
Shall I?
You heard him ask for it.
Emily Bronte's novel begins with a young man named Lockwood, arriving at Mr. Heathcliff's windswept home on the moors, where he meets Catherine's daughter and is visited by the ghost of Cathy Sr. He returns to Thrushcross Grange, where he's lodging as Heathcliff's tenant, and there is told the tragic family story by the housekeeper, Nelly Dean.
Maybe you'd know as I do that there is a force that brings them back, if their hearts were wild enough in life.
The tale wraps up with Cathy's untimely death, and then the story returns to the next generation, where we see the conclusion of Heathcliff's decades-long revenge plan and finally his death. The book ends on a hopeful note, with a love story for the next generation.
And the price? 3 graves by a low wall where the churchyard meets the open moor.
The 1939 movie features Lockwood, and the 2009 miniseries includes The Next Generation, but Andrea Arnold's film dispenses with both. Peter Kaminsky's 1992 movie, starring Ralph Fiennes and Juliette Binoche, and a 1978 BBC miniseries are the only notable examples to include both Lockwood and the second half of the book.
Face. She looked like...
You should not have gone in there.
Fennell, like Arnold, has abandoned the whole framing device, focusing on the love story at the core of the novel instead. When Cathy dies, so does her child, leaving no next generation to follow.
Senses never returned since you left. Miss you wait kindly in the other world.
Miss you work in agony.
It's an understandable decision, but it means that we miss out on many of Heathcliff's most unhinged moments, including his disturbance of Cathy's grave. We also lose that iconic scene with Cathy's ghost, made most famous by the Kate Bush song. What happened to Hindley? The most surprising difference for fans of the book going into the new film might just be the exclusion of Catherine's brother, Hindley Earnshaw.
Nothing here belongs to you. Not now, not ever.
In the novel, Hindley is a pivotal character and the catalyst for most of Heathcliff and Cathy's unhappiness. After Mr. Earnshaw's death, it's Hindley who removes Heathcliff, Cinderella style, from the status of favored adopted son and makes him live as a servant.
You're not wanted up there. My father's pasture at Wheatley. Go and help the stable boys harness the horse for the vicar. Do as you're told. I'm master here now.
He encourages the relationship between Cathy and Edgar Linton, and when Hindley's wife dies, he takes to drinking and gambling, becoming a violent, volatile presence, and, for a while, the novel's main antagonist. It's Hindley who makes the Heights into the kind of place that Cathy wants to escape, and who Heathcliff spends most of his life desperate to wreak his revenge upon. It's also Hindley's son, Hareton, who falls in love with Catherine Jr., and finally gives the novel some semblance of a happy ending.
I thought we could be friends. Even though you'll be ashamed of me.
I will not be. I think I would like a friend.
In Fennell's film, there is no Hindley. Here, Catherine Earnshaw's father, who has previously always been depicted as a benevolent figure, is the stand-in antagonist, a drinker who brings the family to ruin, played with gusto by Martin Clunes. Clunes' version of Mr. Earnshaw is a well-realized character, but he's just not in the book.
Mr. Earnshaw is a drunken, misogynist, nasty, playful, meddlesome, ultimately ghastly.
Nelly and Joseph. Like Mr. Earnshaw, housekeeper Nelly is also a less sympathetic character in this new film. In the novel, she's a family servant who's present for all of Catherine and Heathcliff's trials and tribulations. She also narrates their story to Lockwood.
The falling snow shaped itself into what looked like a phantom. But it was nothing.
It was Cathy.
Who is Cathy?
A girl who died.
In most adaptations, she's depicted as the benevolent, long-suffering housekeeper. In the 2026 film, she's closer to Cathy's age, which is true to the book, but she's been turned into a lady's companion and somebody's illegitimate child. It's not clear whose.
I mean, did you know that she said that Nelly was one of the hardest characters to write?
She did. She told me that during the first meeting, and so I'm always happy to try anything. You know, let's just play and figure it out.
In the absence of Hindley as an antagonist, Nelly is cast in a villainous light for letting Heathcliff overhear Cathy's marriage plans. Cathy later discovers this and tries to turn her out of the Grange, causing Nelly to turn traitor. So maybe Nelly is an unreliable narrator. But in a book full of sociopaths, sheltered snobs, and violent abusers, Nelly, although not a saint, is fairly blameless compared to everyone else. At the end of the day, she's a servant and not responsible for the bad decisions of the people who employ her.
I remember when this house was full of the sound of laughter, Miss Hindley. Now there's nothing but bitterness and hatred.
Another servant who's very different in the new film is Joseph. Book readers will remember this particular character as a crotchety, hypocritical old man servant, with dialogue written in a dialect so thick that you might have to skip a lot of it. Book Joseph loves to preach hellfire and damnation and seems to enjoy seeing people suffer. Joseph in the 2026 film is young, friendly, and a different kind of sadist. He's not a bad guy, just enjoys a bit of S&M in his leisure time.
And he's a heartbreaking character in the movie.
He's a heartbreaking, brilliant.
In the movie, Emerald will make your heart
To
break
see
for
him as a
Joseph.
real person,
and in the book,
yeah.
you're just like, oh, Joseph!
Isabella. But Joseph isn't the only one with some interesting sexual preferences. Isabella Linton, in the book, is Edgar's naive little sister, not his ward, as in the movie. When Cathy tells her that Heathcliff is cruel and could never love her, Isabella doesn't believe a word.
Isabella likes you more than me, it seems. Don't go. Heathcliff, could you ask Cathy to let me go?
She's not eaten in 2 days. She's lovesick.
Ah! What a tiger.
In the 2026 film, Heathcliff tells Isabella outright that he loves Cathy and will marry her only to make his true love jealous. And Isabella consents.
I think a lot of all of the things that Isabella does, you know, like I will make you like a doll, I'll do everything so you have no reason not to love me. Like I think the love is at the center of everything, I think, for Isabella.
What follows is a sadomasochistic relationship that Isabella is totally into. It works as a device to make this Heathcliff less of a monster, but it's also not in the book.
She's very much figuring out what her expectations are or should be of a husband whilst it's happening, because she hasn't had someone to confide in or speak to it about. So she's working from a place of survival.
Sex versus violence. The trailer did warn us that this Wuthering Heights was going to be sexier than usual, and from the opening moments, you know you're going to be in for something a little different. Suggestive creaks and groans turn out to be the sounds of a hanging. But in general, this is a much less violent story than the one told by Emily Bronte.
When I first read the book, I cried a lot, and I was disturbed and I was aroused. It was such an extremely visceral thing.
Fennell has ramped up the sex, but the violence is toned down. For example, in the film, we hear Heathcliff being beaten by Mr. Earnshaw. But we don't see Heathcliff hang Isabella's dog by the neck, repeatedly dash Hindley's head against the floor, or savagely beat his own son and Cathy's 16-year-old daughter. Jacob Elordi's Heathcliff is a lover, not a fighter.
What should you do, Heathcliff?
What?
If you were rich?
Suppose I'd do what all rich men do. I'd live in a big house and be cruel to my servants. Take a wife.
In the new adaptation, Heathcliff and Cathy's love story is still toxic, but it plays out differently. The major change is that when Heathcliff returns, the pair embarks on a physical affair which Cathy eventually calls off. And only then does he marry Isabella. Although it's been alluded to in previous screen versions, there's no mention of Cathy and Heathcliff ever having a physical relationship in the book. In fact, they barely even kiss.
I forbid it.
Do you forbid what your heart is saying to me now?
Saying nothing.
It is. I can hear it louder than the music. Oh, Cathy. Cathy.
I'm not the Cathy that was. Can you understand that?
This could have been to protect Victorian sensibilities, or because of the possibility that Heathcliff could be Mr. Earnshaw's bastard child. Or maybe it's that Emily Bronte's characters are just not that concerned with sex. Their intense connection is based on their minds and their souls. And they have other motivations that seem to drive them more than physical passion, especially in Heathcliff's case. The chief among them being anger, spite, jealousy, hatred, and revenge.
Hold me then. I know that ghosts have wandered the earth. Be with me always. Take any form. Drive me mad.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be notified for occasional videos or all of them. If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications. So how's the historical accuracy? Bronte's novel is set in the late 1700s and early 1800s and was published in 1847. The 2026 film sees historical accuracy go out the window, only borrowing elements from the period that work for Emerald Fennell's creative vision. It's not Regency-era Yorkshire, but it is a fantastically realized world.
When you see the Wuthering Heights set too, you can appreciate it almost like lives and breathes, and the landscape encroaches in on the set in a way that's just fascinating and artistic and cool. But it's quite harsh. It's a lot of brutalist sort of elements, and it's a lot darker. And of course, when you come to these sets, everything's so bright, and it's just meant to be a great juxtaposition.
It's big and bold and a total fever dream. From the old Hollywood-inspired sound stages of the Heights and the Grange, to the costumes, which draw from influences as wide-ranging as Elizabethan paintings, Hollywood period costume, and modern contemporary fashion.
In our version, Edgar Linton is an extraordinarily rich textiles manufacturer. And so it was sort of looking always at textiles that are slightly out of their time, to have that slight feeling of he's sort of bringing the future into this sort of ancient world.
Aside from the stylized costumes and sets, the Emerald Fennell vibes are heightened by the modern soundtrack, with a score by Saltburn's Adam Willis and new songs by Charlie XCX. Fennell, who is a big fan of the book and has read it multiple times, wanted to create her own version of Wuthering Heights, hence the quotation marks around the title, reflecting the way the book made her feel when she read it for the first time at 14.
There's a version that I remembered reading that isn't quite real. And there's a version that there's a version where I wanted stuff to happen that never happened.
Maybe there are more differences than similarities, but every adaptation of the story so far has had its own style and diverged from the novel in different ways. The 2026 adaptation does hang on to some elements and themes of the original, and lots of the dialogue is taken verbatim from the book, although sometimes used in a different context. Overall, though, this movie is a new, vibrant take that will divide fans and critics alike. It's definitely different.
Kiss me again. And let us both be damned.
Is the new film a fun, unconventional twist on a classic? Or does it diverge too far from the book to be an enjoyable adaptation? Let us know in the comments.